What is up everyone, Hero276 here, and welcome to today's video, and welcome back to the channel. Guys, it's been a minute since I've uploaded, but I am back. Let's just enjoy this moment together. I'll explain myself at the end of the video, what I've been up to, what I've been doing, but, you know, we're back. Let's enjoy it, and let's have ourselves a video. Guys, BLACEPHALON. BLACEPHALON is a fire and ghost type Pokemon. It is the feature of today's video. It's got a moveset of Incinerate, Mystical Fire, and Shadow Ball. The reason why I'm trying BLACEPHALON is because A, it's fairly new to the game, and B, it's got a massive attack stat in the Great League format. The BLACEPHALON I got from the research task was like 11, 13, 12 IV spread, so there's no way I'm maxing this thing out, so I just kept it in the Great League, and my goodness, was this thing fun to use. It's got an attack stat of 174. in the Great League Remix. For reference, Mewtwo's is 148. So this thing out-CPs Mewtwo by 26 points. So that's why I'm trying it in today's video. I hope you guys enjoy it. The team is Cradilly on the lead. We have a Gligar, and then obviously we have that BLACEPHALON. The team went 7 and 8. I don't recommend using it to gaining Elo, especially because BLACEPHALON is really bad. It's got the same amount of bulk as a piece of wet tissue paper, so do not use BLACEPHALON. If you want to try out the team, try Skeledirge, but do not use BLACEPHALON in Skeledirge's place, okay? That being said, we're going to jump right into this one. I hope you guys enjoy it. I certainly had fun with these battles. If you like the music in this video, check out the Spotify page, totally free. If you want to submit me your own battles, join my Discord. My form is getting so messy that I haven't been able to sort of manage it. So for now, I'm shutting down the form, but join the Discord if you want to submit me your battles. But yeah, let's do this one. And we are starting today's video off with a lead Cradilly into Shadow Gallade. Not a great lead. I'm going to be switching out of this matchup into the Gligar. My opponent's going to stay in and farm up some energy. And then they send in their own Gligar, and this is actually really good for me because I have a massive energy head start. I'm going to be able to fire off 2 Aerial Aces before they even make it to 1. So this Aerial Ace is going to get them quite low. The opponent will let that one go through, and they're going to get off 2 Aerial Aces of their own. I'm going to no-shield both of these because I think I can come in with BLACEPHALON, throw an Incinerate, and get the snipe. So that's what I'm going to look to do. No-shield this Aerial Ace, send in BLACEPHALON, and the perfect amount of farm, I get 1 Incinerate. My opponent is going to be waiting their clock. They're thinking about what to do. I know they have the Gallade in the back, but they send in Shadow Electivire, and these Incinerates are doing so much damage. They end up debuffing themselves with the Wild Charge, and the Incinerate KOs, and now it's just Shadow Gallade in the back. All I need to do, really, is just invest my shields. I'm going to go for the Mystical Fire. This game is already over anyways. Mystical Fire grabs the shield. I get off the second Mystical Fire. This will KO the Gallade if they decide to let it go through, which they do, and we take the win. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a lead Cradilly into Defense Deoxys. This is a counter user, and I have 2 counter resists, so I'll be switching into Gligar. My opponent responds with Greedent. Now, Greedent here would be trouble for the BLACEPHALON, especially if they have access to Crunch, but the Mudshots do enough anyways to make it pretty uncomfortable. So I am very much okay with seeing the Greedent here. The opponent's actually running Trailblaze, so I'm going to look to do is now go for the Aerial Ace bait. My opponent will be tempted to play for alignment, and I get the call right as the bait is successful. My opponent will be going for a boosted Body Slam. Not going to be enough to KO, and even though these Mudshots are boosted, they're not going to be able to farm down, and I win CMP on the Dig. Dig will be enough to KO from this health range, and we leave with alignment and switch advantage. My opponent sends in Goodra, and now this is somewhat uncomfortable. The grass moves here from Cradilly are resisted, as well BLACEPHALON does not handle fast move damage very well. They end up going for the Power Whip. That does about 50%. My opponent sends in Defense Deoxys, and I can send in BLACEPHALON. And with the shield advantage, we should be okay here. The counters are double resisted, so they're not doing much fast move pressure. but man, I have to shield everything, and even though Defense Deoxys doesn't hit very hard, BLACEPHALON is so frail that a Psycho Boost would come very close to KOing. So now, gonna go for the Mystical Fire. The opponent will let this go through. It will pick up the knockout. They send back in the Goodra, and I'm gonna debuff them with the Mystical Fire. I should have gone for this right away, as I could have limited some of the Dragon Breath damage, as I'm only going to be able to get off one more Mystical Fire, but Mystical Fire should put them in Rock Slide range for the Cradilly, so the combo play with the Rock Slide, this will take out the Goodra and give us the win. Hopping into game number 3, picking up a lead, Cradilly into Steelix. I have 2 better responses in the back. I'm going to pivot into the Gligar. My opponent is staying in this matchup. They farm up energy. I go for the dig, but my opponent makes a phenomenal catch, catching it where it's double resisted onto Mantine. That's a really bad start, and now I have basically no way of flipping this matchup. So, I'm not going to be investing any shields, but I know in return, I'm probably not going to be able to get shields down, so I'm already in a very tough spot. My opponent will be going straight Water Pulse here. I'm going to let this go through, hoping they bait. They don't. They know better. Down goes the Gligar. I send back in Cradilly. Cradilly here can tank a Water Pulse reasonably comfortably, and I decide to let it go through, and it doesn't actually do too much damage. I overfarm about as much as I can, and I go here for the Rock Slide. Rock Slide takes out the Mantine. The opponent has Chestnut as their 3rd Pokemon, a really cool pick. But my opponent, there is sweeping potential here for the BLACEPHALON. My opponent smartly switches out of the Chestnut and does not throw their energy. They send in Steelix and they fire off a Psychic Fangs. Here's the thing, even though we're a Fire type up against a Steel and a Grass type Pokemon, the fast move pressure from Dragon Tail and the Psychic Fangs lowering our already pitiful defense, that's gonna make this basically impossible to sweep. Because from those Dragon Tails and Psychic Fangs, we are basically KO'd. So even though I have 2 Mystical Fires, they're gonna end up getting both shields, but Cradilly just does not hit hard enough to get rid of the Chestnut with 1 charge move. They make it to a superpower, and even though this is double debuffed, it's gonna be enough to KO, and we end up losing. Looking to get right back on track in the next one, picking up a neutral lead into Clodsire. Both Cradilly and Clodsire are very bulky, and they can hit each other for neutral damage. My opponent throws on alignment, and that gives me a Bullet Seed for free. After 6 mud shots, I know that this is just the Sludge Bomb, so I decide to let it go through, and it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. But Grass Knot won't do a whole lot of damage either. None of us are going to be able to 2-shot each other. I try to go for the sneak again, but my opponent, this time they throw with much better timing. So I'm going to look to overfarm, go for the Grass Knot. This will get the Clodsire fairly low, but it's not going to be enough to farm down, and they're going to be able to outpace by 1 turn to the Sludge Bomb. Because it's 665 for Clodsire on the Sludge Bombs, but it's 444 for Cradilly on the Grass Knots. I send in BLACEPHALON, get the Incinerate through, but they have a second BLACEPHALON counter in Mandibuzz. So what I'm going to look to do is shield this up, and I'm going to debuff the Mandibuzz here with a Mystical Fire. Mystical Fire doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's from a BLACEPHALON. They have to respect this. I send in Gligar. My opponent is staying in and throwing their energy. Whatever is in the back is weak to the Gligar. Dark Pulse does nothing. It's Registeel in the back. It's something that both BLACEPHALON and Gligar can beat. So now I'm going to go here for the Dig. Dig does a lot of damage to Registeel, and they're going to fire off a move, but no matter what, Focus Blast or Zap Cannon, it's resisted. My opponent goes for the Zap Cannon. They're not going to be able to lock on down here before I make it to 2 more digs, and if they shield this up, they're going to get KO'd. The opponent commits the shield. I overfarm 2 more because I know lock-on's going to do less damage than Snarl, so I go for the dig. Dig KOs the Registeel, and it ends up being the right call on that overfarm as I get to the Aerial Ace, and this'll put the Mandibuzz in Mystical Fire range. They make it to a charge move, but it does not matter. BLACEPHALON is winning CMP, and like I mentioned with that attack stat, even though this Mandibuzz is in the yellow health, this Mystical Fire is gonna be able to KO, and we take the win. Hopping into the next game, picking up a lead up against Gligar. This is type neutral all around, so we're able to hit each other for neutral damage with basically everything across the board. Gligar has the pacing advantage, but if Cradilly can call baits, then the matchup actually tends to favor Cradilly. So they land the dig. I know I'm not going to be able to fight for Switch, so I'm actually just going to let them KO me. They send in Toxicroak, I send in Gligar, and this is really good. The opponent is going to fire off the Shadow Ball here, but Shadow Ball is not going to be enough to KO. I can let that go through, and they're not going to be able to counter me down. I make it to back-to-back Aerial Aces, and I leave with energy to threaten their Gligar. The opponent lets the Aerial Ace go through. They send in Frostlass. I'm only making it to one move, so I'm going to get off the Dig. Dig will do half of Frostlass's HP, and now it's Blacephalon time. The Incinerate does so much damage. One more and the shield, and we should be able to KO here. Down goes the Frostlass, in comes the Gligar. I didn't realize how much the Incinerate would do, so I end up throwing the Mystical Fire. This is pretty much unnecessary, but we do debuff their attack. The opponent will fire off a move, the Incinerate goes through, and it will KO, so all I need to do is shield, and I win the game. Hopping into the penultimate match, picking up a lead into Shadow Golbat. Now, this is actually pretty decent for the Cradily. However, we're entirely reliant on charge move damage, considering that the Bullet Seeds are double resisted. The opponent's going to go for the Poison Fang straight away to lower my defense, but that's fine. Cradily can tank that pretty well. Gonna go here for the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will force the shield from my opponent. Gonna farm up. My opponent throws on alignment, looking for the CMP tie, but I get the free Bullet Seed. I commit the shield on the Poison Fang to preserve some HP. If they're shielding up the Golbat, chances are they're weak in the back. Gonna go here for the Rock Slide. They double shield. I leave with residual energy, try to catch the Poison Fang onto my Gligar, but it's unsuccessful. The opponent goes for the Poison Fang anyways, and I call the bait successfully. Shadow Golbats love to bait, so I'm gonna go here for the Aerial Ace. It's not gonna be enough to KO. My opponent lets that go through, and now they're gonna go for another charge move. Poison Fang will not do a lot of damage. I'm going to call that it's just the Fang, and it is. My opponent is going to go for 5 more and then the move, so I overfarm 4 and deny them the energy by throwing this Aerial Ace. So down goes the Golbat. My opponent has Carbink at the back. I cannot get to the Dig. I can't even make it to an Aerial Ace, so I'm not even able to chip. However, I am able to send in the Cradily, and that residual energy from earlier allows me to fire off a Grass Knot. The opponent tries to snipe with a Poliwrath. I react in time, and I send in Blacephalon. And this is where that Ghost typing is going to come in handy, being able to double resist the counters here. My opponent goes for the Icy Wind bait. I shield it up, and I'm going to be able to go for the Shadow Ball. And even though this is at -1, it's a Blacephalon. It's going to KO. My opponent just has the Carbink in the back. We survive the Rock Throws, get off another Shadow Ball, and even though it's debuffed, it's going to KO the Carbink, and we take the win. I do apologize for the bar at the top. I was getting text messages all throughout this battle, but we pick up a stellar lead into Quagsire. My opponent switches into Galvantula, and we send in Gligar. Gligar here is going to be able to avoid the Quagsire, which is very nice for me. They end up going for the Lunge. That's going to debuff my attack. Going to go for the Dig. Dig won't KO thanks to the debuff, but it's going to do a lot of damage. They decide to respect it with a shield. My opponent goes for another Lunge. This is not going to be enough to KO. My opponent actually ends up going for the Energy Ball. We survive on 1 HP, and we get off the Dig. Dig gonna be getting the second shield from the Galvantula, and we are in business. After I wait the switch clock, I'm going to be sending in the Blacephalon, hoping an Incinerate KOs. It does a lot of damage. They send back in the Quagsire, and I pivot back into the Cradily. Cradily here can survive a charge move from this health range. I do decide to shield just in case it's the Stone Edge, but it ends up being the Aqua Tail, so a pretty bad shield on my part. Quagsire is going to be one-hit KO by the Grass Knot. They send in Cradily, and this move is going to hurt. I'm going to let it go through. I want to save shields here for the Blacephalon. My opponent goes for the Lunge. I get in a nice Bullet Seed farm down. In the back is Mantine, so it doesn't look like I'll need the Blacephalon. I'll need Cradily instead, and it looks like 2 Rock Slides here plus the Bullet Seeds are going to come very close to KOing. My opponent's going to go for the move. That's fine. I'm going to save this all for Blacephalon. Blacephalon makes it to the Shadow Ball. We didn't need it, but it finishes the game anyways. Blacephalon takes out Mantine, and we take the win. Overall, Blacephalon was really fun to use, but I don't recommend it for any sort of competitive gameplay. As you can see, it can output a tremendous amount of damage, but in my opinion, it's too glassy to be competitive. If you want a Pokemon that has the same sort of Incinerate Shadow Ball combination, same Fire Ghost typing, and a little bit more bulk, and can still output a tremendous amount of damage, you're going to want to look for Skeledirge, as Skeledirge also has coverage with Disarming Voice, and can do just about the same thing that Blacephalon can, so for competitive gameplay, Skeledirge is going to be the pick. Now, I know the content production on my hand has been pretty lackluster. Like I said in the last video, I've been pretty busy with my internship, but also in general, I've kind of limited my Pokemon Go gameplay over the past couple of months, just because I want to spend time with my family, I want to spend time with my girlfriend. That doesn't mean I won't play Pokemon Go, it just means that the content is starting to slow down a little bit because life is starting to catch up with me. I'm going to try to upload shorts once every 2 days. I think that's a reasonable goal, once every 2 to 3 days, because I still do enjoy creating content for all of you, and I don't plan on stopping that. But every day right now is just too much for me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.